PM Modi has spoken to Nepal's interim Prime Minister Sushila Karki and expressed sorrow over the violence that rocked the Himalayan nation. He said, and I'm quoting here, had a warm conversation with Mrs. Sushila Karki, Prime Minister of the interim government of Nepal, conveyed heartfelt condolences on the recent tragic loss of lives and reaffirmed India's steadfast support for her efforts to restore peace and stability. When the US ABC has pulled late-night host Jimmy Kimmel off air indefinitely over comments he made about the shooting of right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk. The network, which Disney, by the way, owns, announced on Wednesday night that it would remove Kimel's show from its schedule for the foreseeable future. Indefinitely is the word that the network has used. Donald Trump later called the move great news for America and congratulated the network for its courage in a social media post. We get you all the latest reactions, followed by my colleague Priyanka Deo unpacking this still escalating controversy.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
We're just about to walk in. Interestingly enough, they waited to pull the plug on this right as the studio audience was about to walk in. It wasn't like this morning or last night. They waited for everyone to come into work today, They didn't tell us what had happened. They just said that the show was canceled. Initially, my concern was, I hope everyone's okay, no one got injured.
First, a way the nation is being divided is just the political polarization that has happened. Conservatives see Kimmel's remarks as part of a long-running trend in late-night shows skewing heavily left, targeting conservative figures and amplifying anti-MAGA narratives. They also view the suspension as evidence that conservative voices are underrepresented and vulnerable to bias. Now, liberals, on the other hand, are defending Kimmel as exercising free speech and political commentary, arguing that hosts have a right to criticize and critique public figures, especially in sensitive contexts. Both sides here have a point. The division also stems from how people view the balance between comedy, commentary, and respect for tragedy. Conservatives emphasize that Kimmel weaponized humor for partisan purposes, while others stress that satire has always been politically pointed and should be protected under the right of free speech. This controversy also amplifies skepticism about media objectivity overall. Some see mainstream media networks as enforcing a very left-leaning agenda, while others perceive regulatory pressure as necessary to curb potentially misleading commentary. The other factor here is just the demographics of America. Younger audiences are actually very highly accustomed to highly opinionated late night programming and may see this as very normal, whereas older viewers may feel that shows have abandoned pure comedy for political messaging, which is true whether late night shows lean left or lean right. So this cultural expectation gap feeds further division. Media is definitely reacting to suspension. Outlets like ABC, CBS, and NBC affiliates report the suspension factually, emphasizing the controversy, regulatory comments, and audience reactions. They also focus on statements from ABC, Disney, FCC Chair Brendan Carr, who is a Trump appointee, and Nexstar affiliates. And some news outlets frame this as a free speech debate, while others highlight Kimmel's remarks as insensitive over Charlie Kirk's death. Conservative-leaning outlets are using this incident to criticize and critique late-night hosts for a very left-leaning bias, for corporate overreach, and the chilling effect on political commentary. They argue that this demonstrates a pattern of liberal commentary going unchecked, while conservative viewpoints are often criticized or silenced. That's the root of their argument. Social media platforms like X and Threads have also erupted with debate over this incident. Hashtags criticizing Kimmel trend among conservative voices, while liberal commentators and citizens defend the host's right to satire. The discussion underscores just the broader polarization that has happened online. Some commentators are framing this as a turning point for comedy and media, and I agree with them. highlighting just how far political commentary has overtaken entertainment, pure comedy, just entertainment comedy in late night programming. Others warn that FCC involvement or corporate preemptions create a precedent for self-censorship as well.
Stay with the US, where Tyler Robinson, the Utah man charged with assassinating Charlie Kirk, was afraid of being shot by police and agreed to surrender as long as it was done peacefully. The sheriff involved with taking him into custody has said. Now, Robinson appeared quiet and somber when he turned himself in with his parents last Thursday at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Now, that came a day after Kirk was shot and killed at Utah Valley University, said Sheriff Nate Brooksby. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, prosecutors charged the 22-year-old Robinson with capital murder and also announced that they will seek the death penalty. Listen in.
For a peaceful, gentle, comfortable transition for him to come out. Again, he knew he was going to get caught. He didn't want a big SWAT team hitting his parents' house or his apartment. He was truly fearful of being shot by law enforcement. So that the conditions were as relaxed and comfortable and almost to the point of, inviting. And if at the end of the day we accomplish him surrendering peacefully on his own, I'm gonna make some concessions to make that happen.
Former US President Barack Obama has addressed the recent killing of Charlie Kirk. He said that the country was, and I quote here, at an inflection point, but that political violence is not new. He also added that this has happened at certain periods in US history or America's history. Obama furthermore said that despite history, political violence was anathema to what it means to be a democratic country. Now, the former president also explicitly denounced political violence, addressing the fatal attacks this year of Kirk and the Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman. He called both incidents a tragedy and said Donald Trump had further divided the country rather than working to bring people together and making America great again, as he has been claiming. Meanwhile, a deadly tragedy has unraveled in Pennsylvania's York County. Viewers, 3 police officers were killed and 2 others critically injured in a shooting in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania. What were they doing while they were following up on a domestic-related investigation, authorities have said. Now, the incident occurred just after 2 p.m. when gunfire broke out. The suspected shooter has also been killed. State police, meanwhile, say the wounded officers are critical but in stable condition. Here's one.
This is an absolutely tragic and devastating day for York County and for the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We grieve for the loss of life, for 3 precious souls who served this county, served this Commonwealth, and served this country.
Across the English Channel in the UK, King Charles has praised President Donald Trump for his peace efforts at the United Kingdom's state dinner. He highlighted that the president, or Trump in this case, is committed to finding solutions to global conflicts. Now, the king also said that the US and UK are in fact standing together to support Ukraine amid the war with Russia, also acknowledging the other allies they are working with. Trump said to this, and the king in fact was seated next to each other at a 155-foot-long table at St. George's Hall, which also included US officials such as Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and also top business leaders like media mogul Rupert Murdoch and Apple CEO Tim Cook. Here's what King Charles III said meanwhile.
Our countries are working together in support of crucial diplomatic efforts, not least of which, Mr. President, is your own personal commitment to finding solutions to some of the world's most intractable conflicts in order to secure peace.
When the Middle East, protesters dressed in white with blood representing hostages killed during the war in Gaza gathered near Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem Wednesday evening. Now, the protesters held a banner, as you see on your screens right now, reading, "This is Sparta." a reference to Netanyahu's speech earlier in the week in which he referred to protesters as Super Sparta. Now, Sparta is a Greek city, for perspective, historically famed for its militaristic society and warrior ethos. Michael Illes, a father of hostage Guy Illes, whose body is believed to be held in Gaza, laid down on the ground next to the protests in white, vowing not to compromise until his son's body is returned to Israel for burial. We get you more.
התחננתי, התחנפתי, הייתי ממלכתית, הייתי תוקפנית, התפללתי, וכך נלחמות כל המשפחות. ואיפה הממשלה הזאת? למה בתוך הפחד הקיצוני, העצב והייסורים, אנחנו צריכים לנהל קרב על הצלת והשבת היקרים שלנו?
Pakistan and Saudi Arabia on Wednesday signed a new defense agreement under which the two sides said an attack on either of them would be considered, and I'm quoting here, an aggression against both. In response to Saudi-Pak Defense Pact, Ministry of External Affairs has said that we've seen reports of the signing of a strategic mutual defense pact between Saudi and Pakistan. The government was aware that this development, which formalizes a long-standing arrangement between the two countries, had been under consideration. At a time when New Delhi is taking one step in dealing with US administration under President Donald Trump, the European Union has announced a new strategic agenda to raise bilateral relations with India to a higher level. Yes, this includes a range of areas, be it trade, be it technology, even defense, security, connectivity, and climate change, to name a few. India will start pilot projects in Venezuela in priority areas like agriculture, pharmaceuticals, and digital public infrastructure. Now, this is what officials in New Delhi conveyed to the Vice Minister for the Development of Information and Communication Technologies of Venezuela, who paid a 4-day visit to India that wrapped up on the 17th. Over in Europe, Denmark is leading a military exercise with hundreds of troops from several European NATO members in Greenland. It's a maneuver that coincides with months of tensions over the Trump administration's desire for US jurisdiction over the vast Arctic territory. The Arctic Light 2025 exercises, as they're called, which follows maneuvers with identical or similar titles in previous years, involves more than 550 service members from Denmark and NATO allies France, Germany, Sweden, and Norway. On Wednesday, Danish, French, and German soldiers, in fact, trained infiltrating an enemy base by helicopter near the Kangerlussuaq in western Greenland. We get you more.
Two aspects that's challenging. The first is that there's no real infrastructure, so we need to move everything by boat or by air, and that makes it very difficult to resupply the company. And the other thing is that there's a lot of hills and altitude meters, and that means that it's very hard for my soldiers to carry all their stuff on their back. It takes a long time to move from A to B by foot.
Hundreds of tourists stranded on their way to Machu Picchu queued on Wednesday morning, waiting for the noon train in Ollantaytambo, where they were left without an opportunity to visit Peru's landmark archaeological site. Now, while they waited for their turn to board a train inside, some 900 were still being evacuated from Aguas Calientes, the closest town to Machu Picchu. The company, by the way, operating the railroad, said later on Wednesday that it had restarted operations. Here's more.
Nosotros teníamos tickets para hoy día. La agencia nos indicó que vayamos a la estación porque hay la posibilidad que de repente puede salir el tren, pero como lamentablemente no hay ninguna autoridad que defiende los intereses del turista, no va a haber trenes hoy día, parece.